Okay, this being the time and place for the regular scheduled monthly planning commission meeting, I'd like to call us to order. Please call the roll.
Lawrence.
Here.
Borden. Way. Tate.
Here.
Wynn.
Here.
Pike.
Here.
Burrows.
Here.
Temple. Pepper.
Okay, we do have a quorum of 5. Do we have well, wait a minute. Do we have any corrections or additions to the minutes from last month's meeting? No. Well, do we have a motion to accept those minutes as presented?
Motion for approval?
Second.
A motion by Mr. Pike, second by Ms. Tate. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Can we accept those minutes? Okay, I'd like to take a moment to introduce the Planning Commission members and give a brief description of how this meeting is conducted. The commission has 9 members. 8 of us are appointed by the mayor. We're all volunteers. And then we have 1 member who's from the city council. My name is Kent Lawrence. Gary Borden is our vice chair, and Larry Way is our secretary, and neither one of them are with us today. Other members are Eddie Pike, Francis Tate, Myrna Burrows, Joseph Wynn. Forrest Temple is a member, and he's absent today as well, and Hunter Pepper is our council members. Members of the public seeking to get an item considered by the Planning Commission must send an application to the Planning Department not less than 21 days prior to this meeting. Unless otherwise specified, all applications for development approvals are the result of submittals by a private citizen seeking some change to their own property. In making our decision, a primary tool used by the Planning Commission is the One Decatur Comprehensive Plan. This is a general community plan for the city of Decatur. It was adopted through a public process to formalize a vision for the future of our community that represents interests and wishes of Decatur residents. In many of these cases, the Planning Commission does not have the final say. Zonings, annexations, vacations, sidewalk cafe license, and some resolutions all require additional approval by the city council. In those cases, it's just the Planning Commission's place to advise the council on that. The first part of today's meeting is a public hearing. Each item will be read separately and voted on after comments and discussion. If you wish to comment, we ask that you come forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and make your comments. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. In the public hearing today, we have rezoning and a zoning amendment. If you'd read the first request, please.
Hello, I'm Tommy Williams with the City of Decatur Planning Department. And the first case is rezoning 1421-24. They want to rezone 19.52 acres. The current zoning is R2. The applicant is Pure Right McAnally for Habitat for Humanity. The location is Moulton Heights Road, and their request is to rezone 19.52 acres from R2 single family to R5 patio homes. The proposed land use is residential, and one future land use is mixed neighborhood. One Decatur street typology is Moulton Heights is a local street, and appointed information is any relocation of utilities will be at the owner's expense, and any relocation needs to occur before construction.
Okay, is there anyone from the public that would wish to speak to this request? Yes,
I
sir.
just have a question. I'm a bit unbent, I can't hear nothing. When you said something, would you kind of give out the topics? I couldn't hear a thing you said.
Okay. The first case is on is a rezoning off of Old Moulton or Moulton Heights Road.
Thank you.
They want to rezone from an R3 to an R5.
Okay.
So is anyone here that would wish to speak to that? Yes, sir. If you'll come forward. If you'd state your name and address for us, please, sir.
Sylvester Love. I live at 913 Bedford Drive. And I want, this is the third time I've been on this rezoning situation. Why is it so important to change, go to R5 from R2 to R5? R2 is a single family homes, right?
Yes, sir.
R5 is a low income home. We had that problem.
Well, R5 actually is the same thing as R3, just a smaller lot. It has nothing to do with income. It's just the size of a lot. An R3 lot has to be at least 7,000 square feet, and an R5 lot has to be at least 5,000 square feet.
Well, let me ask you a question. AME, you remember AME, the AME apartments?
Stonegate, yes, sir, sure do.
Okay. Well, I'm not familiar with what's going on now. But only thing I'm going by was hearsay that they want to rezone it and build low-income houses. And it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm a member of the city council, as you all know, so I am not addressing this with my opinion. I'm addressing it because we had several people who could not be here today. Several had to work. One person had a doctor's appointment that he's been waiting on for about 3 months, and he said that he wanted to be here but could not be here. The concern, I think Mr. Love kind of started out, and he's been one of the people who's called me. But the concern is the Habitat for Humanity. Not that anybody has a problem with Habitat. Everyone's in favor of Habitat. What we had typically done in the past was that we had used Habitat as basically infill. Not used them, but they had used the lots in our city as basically infill. And if you look at our census data, you'll see that District 1 especially, which is adjacent to this property, is covered up with rental property that is where we have a lot of absentee land owners. And the concern is that if we have this situation, then we create a community of habitat. Now that we're not going to have necessarily the absentee landlord because they will be owned. But the problem is that we have a situation with absentee landowners. They've created a situation where property is not being maintained very well. And so the low income aspect of this, just like the apartments that we had looked at before over on 8th Street, is a concern to the neighbors in this community. They ask that you not do this. I have explained to them that I can't share my opinion at this particular point, but when it comes to the council, I will. But I am simply speaking on behalf of those people who do not want this. And there are a great number of these people who do not want this and ask that you not impact their community. I've gotten calls as far as Terre Haute. I've gotten calls from people on Runnymede, people who live on, well, one person who lives on Bedford is here. But they're concerned that it's going to impact their property value. And they ask that we stick with the format that we've used before as far as using Habitat for infill. And they support, again, each person who called me is in support of Habitat. They are not in opposition to Habitat. They simply do not want something that's going to impact their property value. One person pointed out to me that there is a development of Habitat off of Tammy Street, and that there is a decline in that neighborhood at this particular point from not very long, well, the community's not been there very long. So they just simply ask that you will consider this, that you'll consider their wishes, and ask that you not rezone this for this particular project. So that's where we are, and I'll address it from my perspective when it comes to the council.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay, no, yes, ma'am.
My name is Peggy Allen Christie, and I live at 1205 Runnymede. And I just wanted to say I agree with everything that he just said. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Anyone else? Okay, if not, do we have a motion to recommend?
I want to say something.
Okay, get a motion before we.
Okay, go ahead.
Motion for approval?
We have a motion by Mr. Pike, second by Mr. Nguyen. Now comments.
Okay. I just want to reiterate some of the points that the two people made. We have experienced what a 19 and a half acre of low-income property will do for the city and the existing neighborhood. The idea of Habitat was to put them a sprinkle here, a sprinkle here, over here and over there, so it would not impact the neighborhood drastically. Value-wise, so this Habitat home, a large, vast community, is no different from your Section 8. You could just put a new stamp on it, a new label. Why would we want to have a vibrant community and you're gonna bring something in there to make them less vibrant, to make their value devastated? That's not what the planning or the city needs. Don't bring anything to devalue the already existing neighborhood that you have. And this is what this will do. There is it's very few other sections in this city that we would even consider putting a 20-plot, Section 8, low-income housing complex. You would not put it at Port Mallard, rightfully so, you shouldn't. Because that would devalue their property, and that is the same things happening to this neighborhood. They are no different than Port Mallard and anywhere else. And I'm just not saying Port Mallard Pacific. Everybody know it. Neighborhoods we're talking about. You cannot put that vast amount of low-income property and think it's not going to devastate the existing neighborhood. They are normally small in size. Most of them are low maintenance, and the products used, if you'll go around the city and you'll see some Habitat home, you know exactly what they are. And some that has been here for several years, they look horrible in the neighborhood. So that is my issue with put a vast amount of low-income properties near a vibrant neighborhood. It will not work. We have already seen it would not work. We have, the older people, the younger people probably don't know what we're talking about. With AME Homes, Stonegate, but we know what it did to that neighborhood. And that's exactly what you're doing there. So those are my objections. I ask you, please do not rezone this.
So, Ms. Tate, I have a tremendous amount of respect for you. You know that.
You're gonna have to stand up and introduce yourself.
I'm Tab Bowen. I serve as mayor for the city of Decatur, and appreciate the service that Planning Commission provides to the city and its residents. I was concerned, you may have just been looking at me because I was convenient, but I didn't want you to think that I was endorsing this.
Absolutely not. I
Okay.
beg your pardon if I did not gaze to other people in the audience.
Actually, the only people she can address is the one sitting up here.
Well, she was
I
addressing
know
the
she was
heck out of
looking
me.
at all of y'all, but she was talking to all of us.
Okay.
We all know that.
Absolutely
Very,
not.
thank you.
No.
Does Habitat
Yes. Yeah, they are the owner.
I had a question in the pre-meeting, and don't know if this can be addressed here, but are these for sale?
Yeah,
Or-
all Habitat houses
Sale.
are for sale, owner occupied.
So they're owner occupied. So if they're for sale, it wouldn't be Section 8, right?
No.
It's,
Habitat is a HUD program. It's just another name put on it. It's essentially the same thing as Section 8. But Section 8 are rentals in some parts. Some of the Section 8 that are sold, these supplements.
so
Well,
these,
but technically, it's not Section 8. It's very similar, but it is not Section 8 because it has to be a rental to be Section 8, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's a very similar program, but technically, it's not Section 8.
It is
so
just,
it's for sale to low to moderate income buyers? Is that what it would be?
Yes.
So
Low
that's like
income.
Seville, right?
low income.
Very similar to the Seville.
Very similar to Seville.
What is Seville's?
No.
Well, those are.
Seville's
low
R3.
zoning. Yeah, but they're single family detached.
Well, I know, and these would theoretically, generally, the Habitat homes are single-family detached, correct?
Yes, yeah, R5 is single-family detached.
Okay,
It's a
because,
smaller lot.
because then that kind of jumps forward to the build to rent. That would they fall, would these homes fall under the same guidelines as the build to rent, which I'm in
No.
the head of?
No.
No, no,
Because-
this has nothing to do with build to rent or rent. What we're looking at today is zoning from R2 to R5. So an R5 is a single-family home lot. It has nothing to do whether it's owner occupied or rented. So, you know, Habitat generally builds an owner occupied house. But if we rezone this from R2 to R5, and it can still, it doesn't have to be a Habitat house. And they could sell it, Habitat could sell the property, and somebody could build a house on it that meets the R5 requirements and rent it. So what I'm saying is just because we zone this R5 doesn't lock it in to it has to be Habitat houses. It has nothing to do with that. It's just the size of the lot.
I'm
It
gonna
just
ask,
so happens that Habitat is the one that owns it and is asking for it.
I'm gonna ask you a question, since I need to be asking you. If anybody hears it and wants to answer, they're more than welcome. Has Habitat for Humanity talked to the surrounding subdivisions and explained and discussed their intentions with this property?
Not that I'm aware of. Mr. Jackson, do you know?
I'm not, I'm speaking with Mr., Madry here, excuse me, I'm speaking with Mr. Madry, and I've spoken with Mr. Love and several other people. Habitat has not reached out to them.
Okay.
And so, no, to answer your question, no, they have not.
And
This
just,
was-
and just to let me say this also, I've had several phone calls also about this issue. I've had several phone calls also. And Habitat that is what they do.
Yeah.
That's what they do. And if for Habitat, this is what they're going to do on this 20 acres of property.
That's exactly right. If it's Habitat owned, they're gonna build Habitat.
That's exactly
buildings.
right.
That's exactly right.
Name's Richard Humphrey with Curate McAnally, 310 8th Avenue, to respond to Mr. Wynn's question. Yes, I believe that is correct. I'm not aware that Habitat has reached out specifically to the adjoining property owners at this point. The request right now, as Mr. Lawrence stated, is simply the rezoning. of the property. Obviously, from R2 to R5, it would remain single-family detached housing, owner occupied, no intention to rent. So these would be owner-occupied homes that Habitat assists the owners in getting into. They own that home from that point forward.
Matt, say one more thing.
Yes?
And I'll speak louder. I don't want to keep walking over these people. About, I'm going to say 15 years ago, Walnut Street Northwest, we had a very similar situation where I think we have about 3 Habitat homes in a row at that particular point. The Planning Commission, or the Planning Department actually joined in, and we worked with Habitat at that particular point. Again, I can't reiterate enough how no one is against Habitat. We all support Habitat. But the thing was that we had 3 Habitat homes in a row, and we were establishing a Habitat community. Now that doesn't do the residents of the Habitat homes any good, because they're labeled as a Habitat community or residents of a Habitat community. They're labeled. Regardless of what we want to say, when people drive into that community and they see those homes, those people are labeled. That community is labeled. And as Ms. Tate said, it's going to absolutely impact the property value of the nearby neighborhoods. So I don't think that anybody, not one person who called me, Commission, was in opposition to Habitat having their homes. And as one said earlier, it kind of, I'm sorry, excuse me. It connects, in my mind, again, I will reserve my opinion until it comes before council, but it connects to our rent-to-own properties. It does, and there's just no way to say it, because people are concerned with their property value, as they rightfully should be in those type of situations. They're concerned with their property value in this situation. And regardless of how many we build, if it's 10, if it's 20, if it's 30, we will have an accumulation of Habitat homes in one small area. As Ms. Tate has said before, we have seen that in Stonegate. We've seen it with different other projects, and we just, the community, I won't keep saying we, but the community has asked me to express that they do not want that. They don't want their property value impacted. They're moderate income families. They're mostly moderate income families. And I think they have to go through classes and training and things of that nature, and they have to assist in the building of the homes. It's a great project. It's a great project. I just, again, I'm concerned that it labels the people who live in this project, I don't want to call it projects, but in this community, it will label that neighborhood. And so that's what the primary objection is at this particular point. But to answer your question, they are moderate income people, moderate to lower income, people who might not be able to otherwise afford a home. So that's where this is. So, thanks.
And one thing I'll point out, even if we leave this R2, it can still be a Habitat community, because Habitat owns it. You know, they don't have to have it R5 to build Habitat homes. They could build them on the 10,000 square foot lots if they choose. So us not zoning this does not stop Habitat from building homes. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. They already own the property, and they can build it on an R2 lot.
I think that we all recognize that.
Okay, are you speaking for people or for? Okay. All right, go ahead.
I think that the people recognize that, but that's not going to happen. And you know that as well as I do. That's not.
No, I do not know that. I do not know that.
I think that people feel that that's not going to happen, that they're going to build on the 10,000 square foot lots, and they're not going to build on a lot that.
Yeah. I just want to make it very clear that us not rezoning this does not stop Habitat.
I think he understands that. I think
Okay.
some of the people who we've had the conversation with understand that as well.
Okay.
I have a question. Is someone going to address these questions?
Well, everyone we asked that question, and everybody has read this. So,
But, I mean, do they get addressed as if this person was standing here asking the questions?
well, we could do that, yeah.
'Cause
we
he said
we
it's
have an
not-
email where Dr. Williams asked some questions. His first one is, why do we want to rezone this area from R2 to R5? And the answer to that is, we don't, the property owner does, and that's Habitat. So it's not the city asking to rezone it, it's the property owner of Habitat. And I'm assuming the reason they want to is because they can build more homes on a R5 lot than they can R2 lots. How will the rezoning affect the property value of neighboring properties? I can't answer that question. Anybody want to try to answer that one? How will the rezoning affect current and future property taxes for that area? I guess that would have to do with the values. The values go up or down, the taxes will go up and down. But just the habitat itself doesn't make your taxes change. How will rezoning affect the current school district? It doesn't change the school district. It would still be the same. School districts are based on population, I guess, just like any other district. So more population may change it, but I would assume it'd still be the same district. Which targeted audits are you building this district for? I guess the answer to that is moderate income people, people that want a habitat, that are in the habitat program. But, you know, I'm gonna go back. We're rezoning this R5. You know, Habitat is the owner, but at this point, they have not come and said, this is what we're gonna build. You know, we're making an assumption that they're gonna build Habitat houses, but that may not necessarily be the case. I don't think it's fair for us to sit up here and judge that that's what they're gonna do just because they're the property owner. It's probably likely, but I don't think that I have the authority to say that that's what they're gonna do with their property.
Well,
And they're not here to say that, so
Okay,
I don't think I can answer that
You're the
question.
representative. Habitat is going to be a Habitat Homes. Now, let's tell the truth.
My understanding is they plan to build homes out here. And there are many places, again, this is a rezoning request to R5.
Right, but the Habitat program is a program for low-income program. You can't get around that. It's not for YZK development, it's for Habitat. And that's their mission. That's what they do.
That they assist people to get into a home, yes, they do.
And it's low-income homes. And how would that impact property value? Everybody know how it's going to impact property value.
Yeah.
Just like it would yours.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I'm not qualified to answer that question.
Well-
You can answer it.
Habitat is a government program, and they're there for one reason and one reason only.
But
Am I correct?
Our request is a rezoning request, yes. Our request is to rezone from R2 to
For
R5.
Habitat.
Habitat is the property owner,
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, the next question is, what type of amenities will be offered for this district? Clubhouse, swimming pool, convenience stores? I don't think we can answer that question either. Habitat generally doesn't have that, but we can answer that. And are there investment opportunities? I don't know the answer to that question either. Yeah, I'm not either. Any other comments? Okay, please call the roll.
Lawrence,
No.
Way, Tate,
No?
Wynn,
No.
Pike,
Yes.
Burrows.
No.
Okay, that request is denied 4-1. Or will not be recommended, let me say this, will not be recommended to the city council. Now, I will explain that Habitat can still take this to the city council, just because we voted against it. That's just saying we are voting not to recommend it. They still can take it to the council on their own. And then the council will vote the way they see fit. Okay, let's go to the next case, please.
We have site plan 670 It is 29.80 acres, and the current zoning is M1 Expressway Commercial. The applicant is Pure Right McAnally for Land Services LLC, and the location is Fairground Road Southwest. The request is to approve the site plan, and the proposed land use is industrial, and the one Decatur future land use is major institution, with the one Decatur street typology being Fairgrounds Road Southwest as a collector urban street. Conditions to be met is please complete the perimeter and buffer landscaping, and a point of information is any relocation of utilities will be at the owner's expense, and any relocation needs to occur before construction.
Okay, is there anyone from the public who wish to speak to this request? Not, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion for approval?
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Pike, second by Mrs. Tate. Any questions or comments from anyone on the commission? Please call the roll.
Lawrence,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Wynn,
Yes.
Pike,
Yes.
Burrows.
Yes.
Okay, this has been approved 5-0. All right, next.
All right, next we have subdivision with bond releases, and this is for, Old River Manor Phase 1 and Old River Manor Phase 2 and 2A. And they would like to release their bond. And it is, the applicant is River Road Manor LLC, and it's located at 300 Lisa Lane Southeast. And the proposed land use is residential, and the one Decatur future land use is mixed neighborhood. The one Decatur street typology is Lisa Lane and local street.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion for approval?
Second.
Okay, go Wynn.
Motion by Mr. Pike, second by Mr. Wynn. Any comments or questions from the commission? I'll ask the question of engineering. You've been there and inspected all this. It's
All
complete.
public improvements are in place, we would recommend releasing the bonds.
Please call the roll.
Lawrence,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Wynn,
Yes.
Pike,
Yes.
Burrows.
Yes.
Okay, that bond is released 5-0. Now, are we adding the other one?
No, we just don't release.
Just release this one?
Yes, and then they
Okay.
do the maintenance bonds with this.
Okay, so that's what the other was, that maintenance bond. Okay.
And next, the last one is the zoning text amendment, the build to rent. Do y'all have any questions about it? Do y'all-
I think we'll just open it up to the public. Mr. McMaster.
Say you guys will, same folks say the same thing. I'm gonna go against what Mr. Jackson says and recommend you do adopt something. As you all know, several months ago, we had a development that took place, and come to find out after the fact, it was going to be build to rent. What I'm asking is that the city have some way of knowing on the front end what the intent is to protect the sanctity of single-family homes and residences. I think that's fair enough, just like the argument that was just previously made against the habitat things. People should know what is coming in, because had I known what it was, my vote would have been completely different. And I appreciate what you guys do. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I just want to clarify, I am not against guidelines for build to rent. I was using that as an example that this was very similar to that, as he just did. So I'm not opposed to you guys setting guidelines for that, because the neighborhood needs to know what's coming up.
And I don't think we took that you were.
Okay, it was just said that.
Yeah.
Tell me what he said.
Oh,
Mr. Jackson said he was not opposed to the build to rent
guidelines.
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 Right.
Guidelines. I'm not in favor of build to rent.
You say you're not in favor of it?
He's not, he said he's not in favor of build to rent, but he's not against these guidelines.
I got you, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Faye Anderson. I live at 4411 Kiowa Trail in Foxwood. And I appreciate the efforts on the part of Mr. McMasters and the City Council earlier to come up with the moratorium on build to rent and then some zoning regulations. I do not think these are adequate. A lot of the information that's been shared earlier and the questions, particularly Ms. Tate brought up, thank you, we're living with this subdivision that was approved and started is in my backyard. Building started several months ago, and there are now about a dozen homes in early stages of construction, and everything has stopped. There are waste containers sitting in front of every one of these. There are building materials sitting in front of these houses, and nothing is going on. Mud yards, every time it rains, mud goes in the streets. It's a disaster. And it is definitely affecting the price of our property. And we think, many of us, I've talked to a lot of my neighbors, we think that if we're going to have build to rent single homes, that needs to be a separate designation. Face it, this is a business. These homes are being built for investors. Why can't it be treated as a business? It's not a residential community. And it's affecting us, people who have invested a lot in their homes and their property over the years. And it's doing nothing to help our community. So I would ask that you go back to the drawing board and start all over, and let's have a separate designation for build to rent homes in Decatur. Thank you.
Can I speak? No.
As soon as he's through.
Andy Villarreal. I live at 1322 Brentwood Lane, but I'm also owner of Burning Tree Country Club. And as Ms. Tate, as you were talking about with low-income housing, how it affects the price of homes. With these homes going up near Foxwood, we've already seen homes that were up for sale that have had to lower their price by over $200,000, and they're still not selling. So that's what happens when these type of homes get built around certain neighborhoods. And then, and on top of that, when you have rental homes, then Section 8 comes into play too. So you have no control over that. And so that's another thing that gets thrown in here. And I agree with her that, you know, before y'all start even allowing for build-to-rent subdivisions to even come in, get on a bus, go take a ride. You don't have to go far. Go look at some of these build-to-rent subdivisions that have been in existence for 2 years, that look like they've been there for 10 years. They're not taken care of. You can go to Coleman. You can go see what this guy built in Coleman. They look like crap, okay? They're not taken care of. They're not built good. And this is what would be built in our city. And it's not good for our city. And so just like you turn down apartments being built in certain places and everything else, you can turn down build-to-rent subdivisions. And I would encourage that. But I would encourage you to do a lot of homework and get out there and go see them. And if you think build-to-rent subdivisions need to come in our city, then bring back and show us pictures of nice subdivisions that have been there for 5 to 7 years, that are clean, neat, well taken care of, that prove that that works before you start putting them in our city. Because I'm telling you, you put them in Burning Tree already, and they look like crap already. Hopefully they go broke, and we can just bulldoze them down, and we can build something nicer out there. But I don't think it's something that our city needs. You know, it's something that has just, I think a lot of cities have started doing it, but like everything else, just because everybody else is doing it, just don't mean that we need to do it. So I think we need to do our homework and do a better job of, with our city and keep our city where we need to let it go and do a better job with it. But, so I encourage you to take the time and go and actually go see it personally before you start making any judgments on having it in our city.
Let me clarify one thing. We are not the developer. We are not the builder. We're not the one putting the money up. We're not an apartment owner or anything. We're the city. And right now, people can do this anywhere. We have no regulations. So what we're talking about is imposing some regulation. Now, maybe this is not enough. I'm not disagreeing with that, but I'm just stating the fact is that it's not the city that does this. It's not the city that made the decision to put them there. It's the developer, and they can put them anywhere in the city they want to buy land right now because we have no regulation against it. All right, anyone else that'd like to speak?
Thank you, Ken. You know, you and I are neighbors. I'm an Arrowhead, we back over here.
Right.
What's his
And
name?
listen,
Yeah,
just
you state your name first.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Mark Kirchenhahn. I live on 4529 Arrowhead Drive Southeast. Been out there since '85, built my home. When I built, I had regulations I had to go through. My buddy just bought a house that burned right down the street. He went through regulations too. He built it last year. Then talked to the lady there on the stop sign that did the same thing. What you said earlier touched my heart. You're talking about the value of homes. This build to rent thing, I called him, it's just what he said. In fact, they got stayed at after a year and a half, they got homes 5 feet apart. They got a moratorium on it. We have got to come, there is regulations. There is. And if it's not, we need to make some. You can't go in and build to rent and bring in renters that bring your property value. And that's what we're talking about. This is not an argument. We've got to come up with some kind of solution. The traffic out there is going to be bad. When you bring in certain type of renters, you're going to have more crime. It's just, we've got to come up with a solution. Look, I know you guys don't get paid. And I really appreciate you, especially you, Ken. And so we just need to come up with something that we could, I hope you don't approve this. I hope we can look into it. But he's right about Coleman. Check it out. And, Mr. Mayor, vote for you every time. I was at your first celebrity thing you had downtown. And this is about, we elect you. And this is not a good thing for Brand. It's certainly not a good thing for Brand Country Club. You know, they have all the tournaments and things down there. Look, sometimes I wait 5 minutes right now to get out the road. Can you imagine if you've got 175 homes, what you're going to have? And again, I'm not picking on you guys. You got a hard job. But please, please, please come up with something, because there are regulations they got to meet. So do that. And like I said, Billy Jackson and I have been buddies for 30 years, but we need to come up with something. Thanks again. Thanks again.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Erin Cossey. I live at 4309 Ruby Point Drive in Crown Point. I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I thank you for your attention to BTR. I know that it's a very complicated subject and it's very new. But I just kind of want to speak on behalf of my neighborhood and as a resident of Decatur. When Foxwood Farms began to develop, as you know, we're upset about this type of development landing between our established neighborhoods. We're upset and we begged the city to help, which led to the moratorium that passed, and we're very thankful for that. I know that it's given opportunity to give a little more insight into this and to come up with some creative solutions. Since then, I know y'all have been working on some zoning to help regulate the developments in the city limits. But after speaking with some of you and my city councilman, I felt at peace by the seem-to-be-controlled aspect that we were trying to put on these. I am very concerned about the 20% that this that we have to meet to go into effect. I do feel like, excuse me, got ahead of my notes. I know we have needs for rentals in this area. There are a lot of people who can't afford to purchase. There are a lot of young professionals who might not be ready to purchase. Rental is part of a healthy community. I understand that, and I'm not disagreeing with that. But as a young professional, or was a young professional, I'm on my way out of that now. I did move to Decatur as a young professional in my 20s. These build-to-rents would not have been an option for me. They are being built too expensively, so the rent is gonna be high. I don't think that they're gonna attract the young families that we hope with them, or the quality housing that our temporary executives along the river are gonna wanna live in. I do know, if you've been out behind my home, these houses are built just like Habitat for Humanity homes. You know, they do have a brick front, but they're vinyl siding on 3 sides. Their claim to fame is that they're built in 96 days. That's concerning for people who have invested large amounts of money into the communities surrounding these. So what happened in my area of town can happen throughout Decatur with this loophole. So this verbiage is an open door, which will leave the city leadership in a scramble, which I don't want y'all to get into that again the next time this happens. I'm a resident who has purchased land in this community. I've built in this community. I own a business in this community, and I'm invested in this community. And I know that many in this room and beyond have done the same and more. This verbiage puts developers who oftentimes have no local interest or investment before the residents of our city. If we need rentals, we need to put more attention into this and think of a better and creative way to do this. BTR belongs in its own zoning, in my opinion, or a multifamily. It has no place in single-family neighborhoods. What happened in Foxwood should never happened, and I hope that it will never happen again. I think you all agree that it was a devastating situation that they moved in, and nothing could have been done to prevent it. I understand that, but moving forward, I'm glad to see that we're taking action to hopefully prevent that. I just think that we deserve better, and I hope you all will do the right thing and give BTR the attention it deserves in a place of its own that doesn't disrupt our existing neighborhoods. I do believe there is a wise, fair, and legal solution to the regulations these development needs, and I urge you all to find them and preserve the integrity and property value of our neighborhoods. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
James Brothers, and I'm a partner in Land LLC, which is a land development partnership. I'm opposed to the ordinance. Some of my friends are for this, some of my friends are not. I'm with my friends. But I don't know where this promotes the public health, safety, and welfare. Can you answer that question? Nobody? So I assume it doesn't. Second question, is this retroactive to the development that's been approved? So these people from Burning Tree are out of luck. True?
Can't go
Yeah,
back.
true. Zoning, you well know, zoning ordinances only apply to new development. Anything else would be.
Well, that's curious because if you look in section 2, the development will be designated as a BTR by planning staff based upon the information submitted by the property owner or their designated representative at the time of application to subdivide, layout, preliminary, or final plat. We just had a big discussion about what was Habitat for Humanity gonna do out here. That's that zoning. And once it's zoned, it's out of the bag. Other things in this proposed ordinance, there's a lot of permissive language where you say will or may. You're supposed to be using shall or shall not. That's mandatory. Furthermore, this seems to be being dumped off on the Board of Zoning Adjustment. And if you look in the section, section 3, conditional use Board of Zoning Adjustment, tell me where there's any guidelines in there for the Board of Zoning Adjustment to make a ruling. There are none. This is a conditional use going before the Board of Zoning Adjustment, but there's no performance guidelines or restrictions on what that gives any insight as to what the Board of Zoning Adjustment is to approve or disapprove. It's pretty much up to their whim. Approval, section B under 30. Approval by the Board of Zoning Adjustment may be contingent. It should be shall. Because may says, I might do it, might not. Here's this, several terms here. What is a declaration of intent? Somebody must know because.
Well, honestly, it is, you're
the term
making a
is
statement of what you
capitalized.
intend to do.
Pardon?
Making a statement of what you intend to do with it.
Well, I have made a lot of intention in my life that didn't get fulfilled.
I agree.
So anyway, since this is a capitalized term, it's not defined. Intended occupancy type. What does that mean? Your building code tells you what occupancies are. So all I would have to say is, well, I intend to build single-family homes. What is a conceptual development plan illustrating types, sizes, styles of homes proposed and construction materials to be used? Building code tells you what the construction materials are, and those are minimum standards. I'm sorry. As to the comment about where these build-to-rent developments have occurred in other places, they look like crap. You have a minimum housing code. You have a whole floor of people up here enforcing minimum housing standards. So again, this seems to be a solution looking for a problem. Can't define what the problem is. I'm opposed.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Jim Walter, 447 Kyle, Foxwood, been here before. I think a lot of us have a problem understanding when we're talking about zoning, an R3 lot is a 5,000 square foot lot. For the people that-
7,000. R3 is
I'm
7.
sorry, 7,000 square feet. And a lot of us that live in the neighborhood when this particular build-to-rent started, we had the lawyers of the company had an article in the Decatur Daily. We're gonna build 2,400 square foot homes. Well, our covenants only require 2,500, so we looked at it and said, well, that's 100 square feet. And they were gonna have green zone playgrounds. They were even gonna have a clubhouse and a pool. That's in our newspaper from their lawyer. We got none of that. What we've got is a set of covenants for 1,200 square foot homes. And the problem we have trying to wrap our heads around this zoning versus building is there's nothing that says what size house you gotta put on that lot. You could put a 500, if it be a residential area for single family, it's gotta have a bathroom, a kitchen, and a bedroom. That's it. So we're looking for something that can tell us what is this community gonna look like? Draw us a picture for whoever the approval authority is, so you can look at it. And then hold their feet to the fire and make sure that they do what you approve. But I thank you tremendously for the work that you guys in the city have done to date and trying to get a handle on this building. Thank you for your time.
No one else? All right, do we have a motion? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I had another question, and I know you can't answer them. Conceptual development plan? What is that? Do y'all know? Doesn't matter whether you know or not, but your employees in the building department,
as well as the planning department, as well as community development. Somebody's gotta tell them. They have nothing to go on here.
Well, let me tell you, to me, a conceptual plan is what you, now, conceptual means that it can be changed. Conceptual plan is what you come in with, this is what I want mine to look like. You might get in some gray area, you should get with the engineer, architect, say this won't work, that won't work. So, and it might have to be changed. But a conceptual plan is what you perceive that your house, you want your house to look like.
Put
Or
it in the
property.
definitions. That way, you're all crystal clear on what that is. Otherwise, who knows? Is it a picture of a house superimposed, or however you do this on the computer stuff? And then I go build something and it doesn't look like that? What now?
Well, when you come back for the final plan, your conceptual plan is not the final plan. You come in with an idea, this is what I want my structure to look like. And then when you come to different departments in the city, they might say, it's too much footage, or this, the grading is not right, this, that, and the other. And you might have to go back and change it.
Well, one thing in favor of a developer is under C, 3C, it says application for conditional use may include. I don't have to. If you really want it, it's got to be shall. There's a whole lot that needs to be thought about and thought through thoroughly, because my grandkids, your grandkids, are having a very difficult time buying homes. This is a trend all over the country. Why do we want to say, we don't want that? We're trying to get people into Decatur. What have we got? We've got this program called Best and Brightest. We're paying people's tuition if they'll come live in Decatur. Can they buy a house?
So, Mike, I have a question. So you're saying this document needs more teeth, but you don't want the document, is that what I'm hearing?
Well, my point is, I don't know what the public purpose is, and that's your job. You can't get outside of the scope of the public health, safety, and welfare. And that's for all of the people.
It's not our job to write the code. It's our job to approve the code.
It's before the planning commission.
Right, I know, and I just want to clarify that we're not the code writers.
Who wrote this?
Planning department.
Legal.
You very well know that the planning commission does not write zoning code. We approve it, is what we recommend that it's approved. The city
Well, that's
council
true.
actually approves it.
The city council
Approves it. We
approves
recommend.
and writes
We don't write it, and this is what this hearing is for, is to hear why we should or should not approve this code. And everybody can see that we've got both sides of it, and see how difficult this subject is. It's very difficult.
Well, I live in Greystone. I don't know how many units are out there, but there's a lot. There are a lot of rental units in there. In fact, my mother, who passed away last year, I sold her townhome to an investor who's going to rent the property. Get this. Section 4B, BTR developments with 10 or more lots intended for renter-occupied dwelling units must provide a proposed management company with a staff office, standard business hours of 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and located within 30 miles of the development.
I hear what you're saying, but that's to the original developer. So if the original.
How would you do it? If I'm reviewing an application how would I determine, if I gotta go to this place? Do I need to see their payroll? Does the business hours need to be posted, telephone number? You know, the city talked for years about licensing rental companies. But somehow, we didn't think that was a good idea after all. This is not a good idea. Thank you.
My name's Don Swaney, I live in 4404 Iowa Trail. And I just got a quick question. Who's responsible for the traffic study? The planning department?
Well, we don't require traffic studies, but if we were gonna ask for a traffic study, we'd ask engineering to get it for us.
Yeah, and I think there's been this discussion about the Burning Tree is one of the largest cul-de-sacs in Alabama.
Yeah, but this ordinance really doesn't, it's not about Burning Tree, it's about the whole city.
Right.
So we'd have to do a traffic study on the whole city.
You can just do it from the added number.
We could, but what I'm telling you is this ordinance is not for one particular subdivision. It's an ordinance for the whole city.
I got it.
I know it's a difficult thing for the city. It's a difficult thing for everybody, and I appreciate, you know, all the work that y'all put into it. And, you know, I think the thing out of Burning Tree probably would have never happened if it wasn't R3, if it was just R2. So I think, you know, a lot of times that if you know, kind of take the time to look at subdivisions and figure out what complements what's out there, just like with what y'all did with Habitat for Humanity, the odds of Habitat putting something on a 10,000 square foot lot is a lot less than a smaller lot, just like R2 and R3. That probably wouldn't have happened if it was R2 instead of R3. Now, right out, you were lied to because of what you were showed and what you thought was going to be built out there, and what you were shown and everything else, which, you know, so, you know, I don't know what you do about that, but I think that maybe that's a lesson going into further things that go on in the city as far as looking around what complements something when somebody comes in and wants to change it from R2 to R3 or from whatever it is, ag to whatever it is that, you know, looking around and seeing what's all around it. And if it's everything around it is R2, why make it R3? When everything around it is R2, and we wouldn't have had that problem at, you know, at Burning Tree to begin with. But
Do you know what the last subdivision in Burning Tree was built?
I understand.
It's R3,
Yeah.
Crown Point 2.
Yeah.
That's Crown
So
Point.
we did
Crown-
look at that.
It was
Yeah.
Crown Point Addition 4.
Yeah, Crown Point.
And that was what I was just thinking of. I mean, here's the thing, I lived at Crown Point
Yeah.
during that time, when everybody was not for that Addition 4 becoming R3. I think if you drive down that Addition 4 R3, everybody's fairly happy with what's
Yeah.
happened out there. So you just don't know. I mean, it's you know, I guess along the same, you know, applying the same logic to that addition back there, you could say, well, you shouldn't do an R3 like that, but yet it turned out very well,
Yeah.
you know?
I understand. Well, good luck. It's it's a tough situation, and I know every city around is dealing with it. And you know, I've talked to many of the city planners and stuff at different cities, and I've got you know, a son that builds around Atlanta and stuff, and so they're dealing with it too. So it's a complicated situation, and everybody's got to deal with it. And I think there's a lot of cities that don't want it and are trying to figure out how to deal with it. So I appreciate it.
And everybody's asking each other how to deal with it.
That's right.
All right, anyone else?
Can I just say one other word? I think what everybody's saying, I don't think nobody here is particularly against R3. What we're opposed to is the mandate build to rent 20%. That shouldn't even be there. That doesn't make any sense because, you know, R2 is single family and R3 can, you know, it can be mixed neighborhoods and core and all these things here, but we don't.
No, they're both single family. R2 and R3 are both single family.
But we don't mandate it that you've got to put 20%. If they built where I live, they put one over 20%. That shouldn't be, that's not even right. So think about that. We're not talking about R3, we're talking about mandating build to rent houses. And to me, it looks like a business because that's what it is, I think. So just think about it, you know.
Well, we're not mandating that 20% of them have to be rentals. What we're saying is if 20% or more are gonna be rentals, then we consider it a build to rent.
Okay, I appreciate this.
Yeah, this is the opposite, sort of the opposite of what you're saying.
What is this, I mean, I've talked to your neighbors where you live over in Marine Creek, I've talked, and I think nobody likes this. Everybody thinks this is gonna be a mandate of 20% or more. And that's what's bothering people, so if you could clarify that or rewrite this thing or repaint or whatever, that's the problem, so what is it really saying when it comes to 20%? I mean, build.
What it's saying, if developer comes in and he's gonna develop 100 lots, and he says 20 of those lots are gonna be marketed as build to rent.
Yes.
Then we're gonna classify it as a build to rent subdivision.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
And are you saying that if he comes in, he's gonna build 100 houses? Are you saying it don't matter if he builds no build to rents, or does it matter if he builds 20? Is that what that ordinance says?
Yeah, if he's not building at least 20% that he's speculating to be build to rent, then it goes to our normal subdivision regulations.
I'm confused, I really am. I build homes, I got 4 nephews that home builders, but to me it reads like it's a mandate of 20% or more.
No.
You're saying that's not what it is?
No.
Okay, and you know.
No.
It's saying that on the front end of the development, if the developer came in and said, I plan on having 21 homes out of 100,
Yeah.
gonna be rental, built to rent.
Yeah.
Then it's classified as a built to rent subdivision, which then BOZA does have some authority to, am I right, Kent?
Place conditions.
Place conditions on that. Now, if they came in and said, I'm building 100 homes, 19 of them are gonna be built to rent, then they would just carry on and, under this guidelines, they would carry on and just be a regular subdivision.
Yeah, well, the people at Burning Tree is upset because it doesn't conform to all of our standards that we've had to live with. And see, that's all. And again, greatly appreciate what y'all do. It's nothing to do with that, but we just need some clarity on something. I don't know. But listen, Kent, thank you. Thank you.
Well, generally, standards in subdivision come from HOAs. You know, those are agreements between property owners. The city government has nothing to do with that. You know, so that's, when a subdivision is written, they have covenants that have standards on the size house and things like that. That has nothing to do with the zoning designation. That's the landowners signing a contract between each other that they will abide by that standard. So, you know, in R3, you could have a standard that the house had to be at least 1,000 square feet, or it could be 2,000 square
Let me
feet.
ask you a question. This thing has got, I know it's got a moratorium on it. So what if they came back and said, we're gonna build, no build to rent? Would that be okay? Would that be okay?
Yeah, it has nothing to do with this. If they're not building build to rent, then this doesn't even affect it.
Well, I know, but I'm confused because it says in this document, this ordinance, it says 20%, and that's what's confusing people. We just take that out or just.
Well, that's the whole mechanism that makes it start. If you take that out, then they don't have to do anything. We might as well just not even have one.
I don't understand. They don't.
Should that be reviewed before zoning,
Which part?
a build to rent?
Well, then what if they want to build a rent in something that's already zoned for what they got? You don't control it. If it's already an R3 and they want to build a rent in it, this doesn't, if you do it with just zoning, you know, where you say, when you're rezoning it, then you can't do that unless you have a zoning designation for build to rent, and that's what some people are asking for. But honestly, let me explain something with, when it goes to BOZA, Board of Zoning Adjustment, BOZA can put conditions on it. Zoning can't. So if it's an R3, the only requirements are it's a 7,000 square feet lot at least, and the setbacks, and that's how far the house has to be off the property line, is controlled by that. How big the house is, there's no control. BOZA can say, you gotta build at least a 15,000 square foot house. They can do that. Yeah, they can put conditions on it. Right?
That thing's really confusing.
But, that's what I've been informed, that they can put conditions on it.
Are you asking?
Yeah, I'm asking, yeah.
Put conditions on a zoning?
That BOZA can put conditions on a building.
That's like, if it's a use permitted on a field, yes, or conditional use.
Yeah.
If it is not, if it's a use permitted, it cannot.
Okay. So in this, when you have to go to BOZA, if you declare it's a build to rent, BOZA could say, we will allow this to be build to rent, but the homes have to be at least 1,500 square feet.
I'm not sure you can go with that. I don't think
Okay,
so.
well, that's good to know.
And this is only for the initial investment.
Yeah. Now, let me ask this though, BOZA could require more landscape buffer than our zoning requirement requires.
That's in the zoning ordinance.
Well, no, I'm saying more. Right now, our zoning ordinance doesn't require any landscape buffer between residential and single family. In our rewrite, it still doesn't. There's nothing that requires buffering between single family and single family. But if it was a build to rent, BOZA could say, well, we want you to put a buffer in. The zoning doesn't, because we don't require landscape buffers between certain single families. Between an R2 and an R3, or an R3 and an R5, we don't require that you have a certain type of landscape buffer. We do, or in our new one, we will between residential and commercial, or residential and industrial, or multifamily and single family, but not between single family to single family. And a build to rent, which is just is a single family home that is not owner occupied. So it still falls under that same zoning. So with it being a use permitted on appeal, they could put that requirement. And it's obvious that this is, everybody wants a lot more, and some people don't want anything. It's a very difficult thing, and we're just trying to start somewhere. We could just not pass or recommend anything today and it would just die. We could recommend this, we could amend this, or we could table it and come back with something else. But the moratorium has expired. So if we don't do something soon, developer can come in and do this again, y'all. And there's nothing we can do. Moratorium has expired. It was 6 months.
Can you not extend it?
That's up to the council, yeah.
I have a question.
Y'all can extend it.
Just so the folks that live in Burning Tree understand, this ordinance or whatever it becomes is applicable or not applicable to that development.
Not applicable. It can't be.
So regardless of what you do in the council, they have no recourse.
That's right.
That's correct.
It's a done deal. It's already platted.
And they can build the whole thing, build a rent.
Everything that's final plat, yes, they can. And then there's some concern whether they can stuff that's in just preliminary plat, because they already had a contract with the intent to build that.
I think the people are misunderstanding that you have the power to stop this.
No.
Well, we've made that very clear from the beginning that we could not do anything about Foxwood.
Okay, we know that,
Yeah.
but we don't think this build to rent is good for Decatur. We do understand it doesn't apply to us. We're not happy about it, but we're speaking against build to rent because we do not think it's in the best interest of Decatur.
And I will say, I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy at all, and I do drive through there every week. I drive through Foxwood and see what's happening there. I don't know if some of y'all see me, but I do. I have been to Coleman, I have seen that one. And when we rezoned this R3, we had never even heard the term build to rent. I don't think anybody in this room had heard that term. We had no idea that's what was coming. We envisioned Crown Point Addition 4. That's what we all thought was happening. Nobody is developing R2 subdivisions.
Yeah.
We're not even getting many R3 in Decatur. Most everything's R5.
You know, go
No,
ahead.
go ahead.
Go
No, you got the floor. Go
Well,
ahead.
here's the thing, you know, and let's just use Crown Point Addition 4 as an example. When that was rezoned for R3, you could have had a developer come in, Mitch Claiborne did that fourth addition there. You could have had a developer, an investor come in and buy 10 of those lots all on one side and built a structure that would have gone on that lot and had them all rental. So, well, it was not under the homeowners association for the original. It had its own separate homeowners association. And so it could have potentially, is what I'm getting at. And you don't know, any subdivision you do, an R3, that potential is out there. So your options are this. The city says, we're not gonna have anybody build a house more than 2 or 3 houses for rent. It's just not gonna happen. Well, is that something the city is willing to do to stop this? I don't know that legally can, to be honest. So, you know, you've got someone has a piece of property that's an R3 and they were gonna build on it themselves, decides, I'm not gonna build my personal residence there. I'm gonna decide to live over here, but I'm gonna build a house there and rent it out. Okay, can they do that? If we say, nope, you can't do a build to rent in Decatur. So it's a tough thing. Well, I'm just gonna say, it's a tough thing for us to try to do and to try to.
Where's it at legally?
I don't know. I would, here's the thing about it. None of us are up here are attorneys. So that's where you know, maybe Mr. Brothers needs to sketch that out for us, what can happen legally.
I don't work here anymore.
And I will say, what research I've done, none of the ordinances that I'm aware of have been tested in court yet.
Well, why can't we have a separate?
I'm sorry, Mark was next. I'm gonna have to let him go, then you go after him.
Just looking at it, you know, I really appreciate y'all, really do, the mayor. You know, my house, I live on 45, I could rent my house out right now, fine. The problem we're having with this thing is, if you could take the term build to rent totally out of that ordinance, what that's telling me is when you got build to rent, that's a business, because somebody's building 20% of those houses, that's a business. When I rent my house to somebody, that's not a business, that's a personal thing. So I would say that just allow people to come in and build a subdivision, it's hard to with the standards and everything, covenants, and don't put build to rent in it. You don't need to be, because that's telling me that's a business, that's not a, you know, residential thing. And it doesn't conform to our covenants. And so please consider that. That's what I've talked to everybody out there. Nobody likes it, they don't know what build to rent is. And it's like everybody thinks it's been mandated. I respect what you're saying.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say, that's my perspective. Why don't we have a total separate zoning for build to rent areas instead of taking a regular residential area where people expect to own their home, invest in that, grow their equity, instead of that happening when they have build to rent, large areas that are built to rent. It's not going to help with that goal of those homes. People who pay taxes, people who make this their home for years. We need to look at a separate designation for that, just like we have apartments. I don't know why that can't be looked at.
It can be, and I don't disagree with you, but I will tell you this. Anytime somebody brings a zoning to change it to apartment to us, we get this. You know, so, just like the one we just turned down, they wanted to go to an R5. But because of what they wanted, the people are against it. So, you know, we can do that, but you still gotta realize that nobody wants it in their backyard. Everybody says they want it, but they don't want it in their backyard. I'm just gonna be honest.
There's nobody beating down the path to get to those houses back there.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree.
So-
But when they're built, I'm sure they will be.
Oh, but I don't know.
Well, they may not. I don't know.
Ken, are we to a point where I can make a motion?
I have a question. I have a question on this.
You go ahead.
Do you
Well-
make the motion first?
Well-
We actually should make the motion before we start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I have one short question. I want to clarify something. The 35 plats that are currently under the ownership of the developer, the 35,
Yes, sir.
we know we can't stop those.
Correct.
What about addition 4 and 5 that's gonna take us to 195?
Well, I'm about to talk
Do we
about
know yet?
Well,
It's
at this
not.
point, it's my understanding that those were already under contract, so they can be as well.
But they weren't-
This does not stop that either.
They weren't platted, though. The subdivision wasn't platted, is that correct?
Yeah, it was preliminary plat.
It wasn't preliminary plat?
Yeah, it just hadn't final plat.
It's been platted. Fellow that's putting the houses on the 35 doesn't own this other land yet.
Yeah, that's right, but he has a contract on it.
Contract to purchase.
Yeah, contract to purchase.
So,
Or an auction, you know, it's one of those, it's contract option. It's been explained to me that the moratorium did not affect any of the phases in Foxwoods.
did not affect it. Okay.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
I would make a motion that we ask the council to extend the moratorium, give us more time to flesh this out. And
I would think first we'd have to we'd have to table this or vote it down, and then you can make that motion to do that. I would think.
Well, I'll make a motion to table it, send it back to legal and address some of these issues.
Okay, do I have a second for that?
Second.
Could you restate the motion?
Okay, the motion was that we table and send it back to planning and legal to address some of the issues that have been brought up today.
But at this point, if a developer decides to do build to rent, that's okay.
Unless.
His next motion is gonna be to ask the council to extend the moratorium.
Yes.
But
But until the council
Is this a
does that.
citywide moratorium? or-
right now it is, yes, citywide. Okay, so we have a motion to table and
But
a second.
until the city council extends the moratorium,
It's wide
there's a
open.
window.
That's
That's right.
correct.
That's right. Well, and honestly, if we pass this today, they're not gonna pass it, but, I mean, they could pass this at the same time they could extend it, so it doesn't change anything, to be honest.
The window's still open,
The
regardless.
window's still open regardless. Okay, any other questions? Please call the roll. This is to table the motion.
Lawrence,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Wynn,
Yes.
Pike,
Yes.
Burris,
Yes.
Passage.
Okay.
Okay?
I make a second motion that we ask the city council to extend the moratorium for another 6 months to allow us time to rework this.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Wynn, second by Mrs. Tate. Any questions or comments from the commission?
Is that legal?
We can request.
We already request to.
Well, okay, I'm gonna ask, before you come up, I'm gonna ask legal, can we request that?
Yes, sir.
That's what I thought, okay? Go ahead.
And in this moratorium, as I understand it, this gentleman here is the only person in the planning department.
You are correct.
Well, you got time for all this?
you'd rather have a committee? Home builder, realtor, get some input? Excuse me, this man's by himself. You're asking an awful lot for one person who's trying to do the planning for this city. So I would recommend no moratorium, because we don't have another one of these proposals out here that we know of. And give some guidance to this gentleman so he can put something together that reflects what this city wants. But from witnessing this today, I'm not sure we know what we're doing.
You're exactly right. We don't know what we're doing.
This is a new.
The new thing, I haven't talked to any city planner that knows what they're doing with this topic.
Well, I've met a few of those.
Well, you need to send them to us.
No, they don't know what they're talking about.
Okay.
No, we know.
You used to be one, right?
I was. I'm not here anymore.
I think it's the bill.
But if I'm gonna rezone my property, what do I do?
To rezone it for what?
But we're not.
R3.
We're not putting a moratorium on the zoning. We're putting a moratorium on
build to rent.
build to rent. And that doesn't stop anybody unless they want to be honest and saying they're coming in and developing a build to rent.
I'm not gonna respond to that.
Yeah.
But the way this works right now, you get your zoning and then you ask for BTR.
Not if you've already got your zoning, you don't.
And I would say.
But I don't have the right to build BTR, it's just under the zoning.
That's correct. That's correct.
Right now you do. If there's no moratorium, yes, you do.
Here's what I.
Well, I'd like to keep it that way.
Okay, that's what I thought. But that's one, you're right.
But if there's a public purpose in this, I'm willing to listen to it.
I'm gonna suggest that the things you pointed out today have been good, and we will take those as we are, if the city council puts a moratorium on it, and all we're doing right now is requesting that they do that. If they do, then they will kick back to us and ask us to relook at this.
No.
No?
They will kick this back to the planning department.
Correct.
Which is a one-man show right now.
I agree
So
with that.
I'm gonna be honest with you, this is gonna fall way back in the schedule. Nothing's gonna happen soon. And obviously, we don't know what to do to happen, so we're gonna have something to figure this out. So what we're saying is we're just gonna sort of hold where we are. But right now, somebody can develop what is called build to rent anywhere in the city they want to.
But for how long?
Today, they can do it anytime.
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow they can too, because there's no ordinance against
Until
it.
something is presented to us to extend the moratorium, right now it's fair game.
That's right, that's exactly right. Until the city council chooses to, hold on.
Until the city council chooses to
Yeah.
extend it.
Until the city council chooses to put a moratorium on it, they can do it now. And
The fact is, Ken, that this city council has more special call meetings than you can shake a stick at.
Yeah.
And we can have a special call meeting within a 24-hour notification and do this.
You sure could.
So, I mean, I don't know, there is a window because we passed the 6-month period, but if we had a special call meeting and put another moratorium on it until we can come up with a plan, and our position has to be that we need to research what other communities are doing, because, again, we have a one-man department. That's our own fault. But we have a one-man department, and we need to see what other planners and other communities are doing to correct, or I won't say correct, but to deal with this situation. So, yes, there's a window open, but I think everyone knows that we can have a special call meeting within 24 hours.
Are you through, Mr. Brothers?
Well, let me say this, it certainly leaves a developer, especially an out-of-town developer, which there seems to be a bias against, with a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, but
Would I invest my money in this community with the uncertainty, this is all stirred up? No, wouldn't do it.
But honestly, your comments need to go to the council.
There's
Because,
three of them are here, so they know.
Well, it's just different.
okay. So basically, we all agree that something better needs to be written. It's gonna take a while. Like you said, we got one person in the planning department, and there's nobody that we found in the country that really knows how this should be worded. So, you know, if the council calls a special meeting and puts a moratorium on it again, that's, can happen. But all we can do is what we're doing now, is table it and ask them to do that.
I have one question.
Okay, I'm gonna start getting everybody to come back up here, because this is sort of getting out of hand.
I'm Becky Hoover, I live in Crown Point. My question is, the way I understood it, they came in and presented what they were going to do in that development back there. But it is entirely different, like Faye said, I believe 2,400 square foot homes, which were pretty much comparable, you know, to 25, which was some of theirs. So what about the fact that they misrepresented from the very beginning?
Well, I don't know where this came from, that they represented that they were gonna build 2,400 square foot house. Well, I don't know where that came from, you know. We were not, when we were rezoning it, we don't ever have somebody tell us what they're gonna use. Well, I shouldn't say ever, but generally they don't say what they're gonna build. You know, we can make some assumptions, but they're not required to tell us what they're gonna build in a zoning phase. Right. And like I said earlier, zoning doesn't put any requirements on the size of the house or anything like that. That's all in HOA mandates.
I said one question, I've got two. Did you know initially that it was going to be a DTR community?
No, ma'am,
No.
I've never even heard of the term.
That's it.
No.
Right.
And see, but there again, to me, that was a very deceitful thing that happened, you know, and it was misrepresented whichever way you look at it.
And that's why we're here.
That's why
why
we're
we
trying
have
to do
this.
something.
It may have been misrepresented, but they did not break any zoning requirements.
I know,
Yeah.
and we appreciate what you're doing. We really
Thank
do,
you.
and you too.
Yeah, let me just say this. This one-man show is doing a tremendous job.
Yes, thank you, Tommy. And I just, okay, maybe you can clarify something that was discussed earlier when we talked about build to rent and drafting an amendment, a zoning text amendment. Are we the first entity in the state of Alabama that is dealing with this?
No. No, but I've found more municipalities in Georgia than I have Alabama. We found two, three in Alabama.
I couldn't find any municipalities in Alabama who adopted any regulations or ordinances at all. It was Woodstock with Cherokee County, Georgia, and Sumter Springs.
Yeah.
Because at one point, it was mentioned that no other municipality had done this. You know, maybe they've discussed it, but that no other municipality has actually
To my knowledge, Smyrna, Alabama, there are no restrictions, regulations, ordinances.
Okay, because that is part of the issue that we're dealing with. We're the first ones that are trying to pull something together and figure this all out.
That's correct. And
Okay.
when our previous planner called Huntsville and asked them, they said, when you figure it out, send it to us.
That's exactly what.
Okay.
The American Planning Association, which I hope he's a member of, could probably serve as a huge resource.
Well, they have very little on
Did
it.
I,
Very little on regulations on it.
now, did I throw up my motion?
Yeah, you got a motion and a second, so
Yeah.
you still got discussion.
Oh, okay. I just made sure we had a second.
I did get a second, didn't I? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay. The motion is to request the council to extend the moratorium for another 6 months. Okay, I'm gonna call the roll.
Lawrence,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Wynn,
Yes.
Pike,
Yes.
Burrows.
Yes.
All right. No further business. I will call us adjourned. Thank y'all for coming.